Mr. Mayor, it is 5:30 and the live stream has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Council. I see that we do have quorum, so I call this meeting, public meeting under the Planning Act into session on this Wednesday, January 22nd day. And I now will count on Councillor Kerr to read the land acknowledgement.
The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land, steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will begin with some opening remarks. Public meeting under the Planning Act, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, 5:30 p.m. The Town of Pelham is holding hybrid public meetings. A hybrid meeting involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance participation. Please note, no decisions have been made prior to this public meeting. The Planning Department will be providing a presentation regarding the subject application. Decorum. Public meetings under the Planning Act are formal meetings requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you'll be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If someone ahead of you has made the same comments that you wish to make, there is no need to repeat the same comments. Please keep all comments concise. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Inappropriate comments and behavior, such as clapping, will not be tolerated. Please note, if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons will be asked to leave. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the planner responsible for the application in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is to follow the presentation. Contact information can also be found at the Town of Pelham's website. Mr. Mayor, this brings us to item 3. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik that the agenda for the January 22nd, 2025 public meeting under the Planning Act, special meeting of Committee of the Whole, be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, after viewing the agenda, is there any comments, questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, that now brings us to item number 4, being the disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any council member have to disclose disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? I see none.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That now brings us to item number 5, and I will now read the opening remarks. Town of Pelham application for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, 1415 Station Street, file numbers OP-AM-01-2024 and AM-09-2024, official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to permit a 3-story, 22-unit residential apartment building on the subject property. The Planning Act requires under sections 26 and 34 that council must hold at least one public meeting for informing the public in respect of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. This public meeting has been called to satisfy this requirement. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on December 20th, 2024. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. In addition to providing information, we will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the clerk in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is available on the town's website and will also be displayed on the last slide of the staff presentation to follow shortly. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Town of Pelham to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Pelham before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. In closing, we stress that at this point, no decisions have been made on the proposed amendments, and therefore any comments received will be considered by Council. Mr. Mayor, we have Mr. Andrew Edwards, Town Planner, here with us this evening representing the file.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Mr. Edwards, you have the floor. Wayne is on. Oh, we got Wayne.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of council, members of the public. Tonight's public meeting concerns applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the property at 1415 Station Street. The property is located on the east side of Station Street, approximately 80 meters north of Summersides Boulevard and 200 meters south of Highway 20, outlined here in the slide on red. The lands are rectangular in shape, are approximately 1,620 square meters in area, and have approximately 26.2 meters of frontage along Station Street. The lands are currently vacant, having previously contained a single detached dwelling that was demolished in 2023. The lands were subject to a consent application in 2021, which severed a portion of the property to the rear for future development, being the future Park Place West development to the east. Surrounding land uses are varied with a mix of existing and future residential uses to the north, east, and south, and institutional and commercial uses to the west, being St. Alexander's Elementary School and St. Alexander Church. The requested official plan amendment would amend an official plan policy as it relates to the property to allow a maximum building height of 3 stories for the apartment building. The requested zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the lands from the village commercial zone to a site-specific village commercial zone with 6 site-specific provisions. The applicant is proposing a 3-story residential apartment building containing 22 units. The first floor of the structure consists of a screened parking area, including 28 parking spaces, the building's lobby, a garbage room, and a room for building services. An additional temporary parking space is provided in the front yard for deliveries and temporary use. If you'll refer to the slide here, the second story is this internal line here. So the second and third stories consist of 11 units each for a total of 22 units. The residential floors are stepped back from the parking level as indicated. The units range in size from approximately 580 square feet to 765 square feet, and the building is planned to be condominium tenure. Vehicular access and pedestrian access to the building is provided at the front of the building from Station Street, with landscaping provided along the perimeter of the site. This slide shows the renders that were provided by the applicant along with the application. The image on top is a street view elevation, so you can get a sense of how tall the proposed structure is in relation to the buildings around it. And the second picture is just a render of the building, so you can get a sense of what it will look like and the step back of the second and third stories. The provincial land use planning framework for the property includes being within a designated settlement area per the provincial planning statement. Settlement areas are intended to be the focus of new growth and new development and are to include a mix of uses, housing options, and densities that efficiently use land and infrastructure. Intensification is generally encouraged in these areas, as well as a healthy mix of residential and employment land uses. According to the Niagara Region official plan, the property is within the urban built-up area. In line with provincial policy, the built-up area is intended to be the focus of residential and employment intensification and redevelopment. The region's official plan encourages a variety of housing types within urban communities and neighborhoods. The town's official plan designates the subject lands as downtown transitional area and in proximity to a designated potential intensification area. In addition, this stretch of Station Street between Summersides and Highway 20 is identified as an intensification corridor. Lands designated downtown transitional area are located adjacent to the downtown designation and are intended to be used for a mix of residential and commercial uses. The official plan identifies the purpose of the downtown transitional designation to reinforce the importance of the downtown through development that contributes to the character and identity of the downtown. For development in the downtown transitional area, the OP states that council should be satisfied that the scale and appearance of the use is complementary to and does not detract from the residential character of the area. The building and/or the general appearance of the site will be improved through quality urban design. Adequate on-site or off-site parking is provided, and the site plan and site plan agreement will address appropriate urban design matters. The development as proposed requires an amendment to the official plan. Policy B1343B of the official plan states that the maximum building height should be limited to 2 stories. The official plan amendment application proposes to amend this policy on a site-specific basis to permit a maximum height for the building of 3 stories, or 12.5 meters. The lands subject to the application are zoned village commercial. The village commercial zone permits a variety of commercial and residential uses. Apartment dwellings are a permitted use in the VC zone. The applicant requests to rezone the lands to a site-specific VC zone with 6 site-specific provisions, which will be detailed in the following slides. As mentioned, there are 6 site-specific provisions requested for this new site-specific zone. First, an increase to the maximum building height to 3 stories, or 12.5 meters, from the maximum 2 stories, or 9 meters. Second, an increase to the maximum front yard setback to 5.3 meters, where the bylaw requires the main front wall of the structure to be built within 1 to 5 meters from the front lot line. Third, an increase to the maximum side yard to 2.55 meters, where the bylaw requires a minimum side yard of 0.6 and a maximum of 1.2. This setback is measured to the first floor parking level. The residential uses on the upper floors are set back slightly further, which range from approximately 3.5 to 4 meters. Fourth, there's a reduction to the minimum driveway width to 5.7 meters, where the bylaw requires a minimum of 6. Fifth, the deletion of the requirement that a parking space is not permitted in the front yard. I would note that this provision is only required for the temporary delivery space in the front and not for the parking structure itself. 6, a reduction of the minimum rear yard to 1.45 meters, where the bylaw requires a minimum of 6 meters. I note that the applicant originally requested a rear yard setback of 2.05 meters. In order to address comments raised by Community Planning and Development, the applicant provided a revised site plan which further reduced the rear yard setback an additional 0.6 meters. The purpose of the change was to accommodate a bump out in the parking garage for the maneuverability of spaces 17 and 18 here. It was intended to provide this bump out to make backing out of these spaces a little easier for future users. The plan was revised to accommodate the requested bump out, which shifted the building slightly to the east and requires a reduced rear yard. The other setbacks remain unchanged. Several comments have been received on the application from both external agencies and town departments, which are summarized here. Town Planning requested the Ministry Archaeological Clearance Letter. They recommended that bump out, as I mentioned. Requested more details with respect to landscape materials and encouraged use of native species as a buffer to the adjacent residential uses. Town Building commented a building permit will be required following site plan approval. Town Public Works commented installation of new services will require a temporary works permit. They commented a front-ending contribution for the stormwater management system oversizing is required. They requested clarification on sanitary flow capacities and the capacity of the rear yard catch basin to determine if capacity in the town's receiving infrastructure is acceptable. They also indicated they do not support back-to-back catch basin connections. The town's accessibility consultant, the Harrington Group, provided comments on the floor plans from an accessibility perspective. The Niagara region offered no objection, and Niagara Peninsula Energy commented that hydro servicing to the building will require a 3-phase pad mount transformer on the property, which has been accommodated. Public comments were received from Kurt Harley. Mr. Harley provided comments with respect to the development located at 105 Highway 20 East, expressing ongoing frustration that the development there has stalled. The following materials were submitted by the applicant along with the application. They submitted a planning justification report, a functional servicing and stormwater management report, a preliminary grading plan, preliminary architectural plans, including elevations, building renderings, and streetscape plans, as well as floor plans. A shadow impact study was prepared, and a preliminary landscape concept, in addition to an archaeological stage 1 and 2 assessment. And a reminder to everyone here that all of these materials are available for review and download on the Engaging Pelham webpage. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I thank you for your attention this evening. I emphasize that no decisions or recommendations concerning this application will occur tonight. Staff will review the comments received and prepare a recommendation for council's consideration at a later date. If any member of the public wishes to receive notices regarding this application, please ensure that you have provided written comments, verbal comments tonight, or provide your contact information to the clerk. And planning staff are available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that report, Mr. Edwards. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have Ms. Chelsea Liotta, the agent representing the applicant, here with us today, and I understand that she has a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you. And you have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Chelsea Liotta, and I'm planner at Upper Canada Consultants representing the owner of the subject lands, Hummel Group, Inc. Here with me is William Haiku, planning manager at Upper Canada Consultants. We are here tonight to provide a presentation for a combined official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application for the proposed development at 1415 Station Street in Fonthill. The subject lands are east of Station Street, north of Summersides Boulevard, and south of Highway 20. The lands are approximately 0.4 acres in size and rectangular shaped. To the north are single detached dwellings within the downtown transitional area, with Highway 20 further north. To the east is future residential development known as Park Place West. To the south are single detached dwellings, a low-rise apartment building, Summersides Boulevard, and future residential development. To the west is St. Alexander Catholic Elementary School, St. Alexander Church, and commercial uses. The lands are located within the Pelham urban area, more specifically a potential intensification area within the downtown transitional area, just outside of the East Fonthill secondary planned area, and within the delineated built-up area per the Niagara official plan. The lands are zoned village commercial. The owner is proposing the development of a 3-story residential apartment building that will accommodate 22 dwelling units. The building is proposed to be of condominium tenure. The first floor will consist of a parking area that includes 28 parking spaces, a lobby with an elevator, a garbage room, and a room for building services. All access will be provided at the front of the building along Station Street, though there are also 2 stairwell exits along the south side of the building. The second and third floor will both contain 11 dwelling units ranging from 580 square feet to 760 square feet with 1 to 2 bedrooms. The subject lands are designated downtown transitional area in the local official plan. An official plan amendment has been submitted to permit the height of the proposed residential apartment building. It is requested that policy B1343B of the official plan, noting that the maximum building height for the downtown transitional area should be limited to 2 stories, be amended. A 3-story building is proposed for this development in order to better contribute to the overall objectives of this downtown transitional area, and more specifically, the potential intensification area that the lands are within. This area is planned for redevelopment at higher densities that complement downtown, as all amenities are proximate, which promotes active, healthy living. To add, higher densities within this planned area will take pressure off the lower density established residential areas. It also should be noted that the Park Place West to the east of the site has a permitted height of 10.5 meters, and we are currently proposing 12.5. The subject lands are zoned village commercial. A zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted to permit site-specific provisions for the village commercial zone, as town staff has described. Along with these applications, supporting studies were included with the submission. These studies include Stage 1 to 2 archaeological assessment, functional servicing report and stormwater management plan, a shadow and overlook study, and a planning justification report. Overall, the studies concluded that there are no negative impacts associated with the development of the subject lands. The proposed architecture is well designed and adds a new and vibrant built form into the area of town, while being mindful of the exterior cladding and front facade to ensure compatibility with the surroundings. The proposed building exhibits good urban design principle and engages positively with the public realm along Station Street. The inclusion of urban elements will improve the current visual condition of the property to the benefit of the surrounding lands. It is acknowledged that Station Street is a transitional area that is anticipated to experience change and new development. The proposed development provides a sense of place through building massing, glazing, and interactive elements such as balconies, doors, and landscaping. These inviting spaces will supplement the public realm and serve as attractive and accessible gathering and living spaces for existing and future residents in the area. The building is set back 4 meters from the property line to provide opportunities for landscaping. Design features such as pitched roof, overhead canopy for the main entrance, and balconies are included. Increasing the height by 1 story allows for a greater number of dwelling units to be provided on the subject lands, providing an overall net benefit. As the lands are within the transitional area, it is an appropriate site for better utilization of vacant urban service lands and intensification. The scale and density are compatible with that of the existing and future development. In summary, the development proposes to seek an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to permit the construction of a 3-story apartment building yielding 22 dwelling units. The proposed development balances the accommodation of prescribed growth targets, improves housing choices, and is an efficient use of urban lands with access to municipal services. As the proposed plan is within the downtown transitional area, it is a warranted and encouraged place for growth and development. Thank you for your time this evening, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have 2 pre-registered speakers. Our first speaker, Ms. Marianne Joyce, does not appear to be in the gallery, so if you wish, we can move on with our second registered speaker, Mr. Stephen Kaiser of Kaiser and Associates.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, thank you for joining council tonight, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and staff, and others watching. Good evening. My name is Stephen Kaiser, and I've resided in the town for most of my life. We own the property immediately north of the subject property on Station Street. We've held it for some time. As you know, or may not know, Station Street is one of the oldest streets in the town, named appropriately after the train station that was at the corner of now Highway 20 and Station Street, the old Fond Hill lumber site where trains used to come in the early 1900s on the hour either headed alternately to Port Colborne or Meriton for the people of now the town of Pelham to use. Back then, I believe it was Temperanceville. So a little bit of history, but in 2012, the town changed the official plan, as you've heard, to make that a downtown transitional area as outlined in the map you saw earlier. The zoning bylaw, however, still remained R2 for the area. That zoning bylaw dated back to 1986. I represented some property owners at that time when I was a young boy in regards to zoning on Highway 20. So the downtown transitional zone takes in the first 200 feet off of Station Street. And as mentioned, its use is complementary to the downtown. We purchased our property after the downtown transitional zone was put in place. And I've been working with town staff, waiting with town staff for the moons to come into the right position. So congratulations to the town on the new zoning bylaw that this council moved forward in 2022 to basically come together with the OP that was then set in 2012. But there was one hiccup, so to speak, behind the scenes, in that the OP was held to 2 stories, and the intent for staff was to actually change the zoning bylaw to 3 stories. If you look at the zoning bylaw in the pictures, you'll actually see a 3-story building illustrated in there. But as the OP was set at 2 stories, the zoning bylaw couldn't be changed to 3 stories. So now we're in the process of changing the official plan, which is underway, to 3 stories, and then we will go back, or staff will go back, and with council's permission, change the zoning bylaw to 3 stories to conform. So that's the exercise we're going through. It's been a long-awaited process as we started in 2012, and we're now finishing the OP, and then we'll go back to the zoning bylaw. But good planning takes time. So that's staff's position, what we're working towards, or what I'm interested in. The area is prime for redevelopment. It's been in the DC, in the development charge background study for the town since 2018, again in 2024. And I'm hoping that the town moves forward quickly to re-urbanize Station Street with infrastructure that will permit similar type developments as envisioned here. The road is extremely wide. The road allowance 77 feet north of this property, room for parking when the road's redesigned, and to assist in those uses for this transitional zone. In terms of the actual application, I guess I am in favor. I'd like to do something on the adjacent property. I've talked to you about the number of stories, so hopefully council has a better understanding of the story behind the story, although you can only deal with what's in front of you as actuality. The design is, actually the firm has done work for the town, very complimentary, and I support that. The side yards, certainly if intending the side yard next to our property, certainly I support the maximization of the side yard. Certainly if 2 buildings were at the maximum side yard side to side, you could almost hand something out a window to somebody in the other property. So certainly supportive of that variance. So all in all, those are my general comments. I think it's good development. It's what was envisioned for this zone, and it has our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Appreciate your comments and your time tonight. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't see Ms. Joyce has attended the gallery, so this will conclude our pre-registered speakers. And seeing no one else in the gallery to speak, I will just check the clerk's at Pelham email address to see if we received any emails.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that it is 5:59 p.m. and we have received no comments via email. Therefore, you may close the public portion of the meeting and move to committee input.
Okay, thank you. We will follow the clerk's advice, and we will close the public input part of the meeting, and I will now turn to committee for input, and of course, your comments and questions to any of the presenters here this evening. Councilor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Get back there. You thought you had escaped. May I call you Chelsea? Okay. I see you have backup at the mic.
I do.
Just a couple of questions on the design of the building. So the parking spaces are at the first floor, and if I'm looking at this design, this picture here, on page 59 of 59, it appears like there's garage doors all along the bottom. Is that the entrance and exit of the parking spaces?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor. So yes, there will be a typical garage door on the front, on the ground floor, but there will also be the entryway. So if you're referring to the image on the screen here, you can see in the middle of the building, that's a typical garage door. You're going to see it's about 14 feet wide. On the right-hand side, you can see that's the main pedestrian walkway into the building, to the lobby and the elevator and whatnot.
Do those doors open, close? The garage doors?
Yeah, so the main door in the middle will be like a typical garage door that rolls up. The main pedestrian door will be your swinging door, like your man door type of.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed balconies on both the second and third floor for the units?
Yes, that's right.
And that one on the, I guess it'd be the front face of the building on floor 2 and 3, is that one unit with a wraparound balcony, or is that a couple of units in there, both on the second and third floor?
Yeah, so each floor would have an individual unit, and then the balcony kind of comes to the edge of the front wall there along the side. Just gonna pull that out here for a second. Sorry, bear with me for a second. My apologies. So it does slightly wrap around the front on that left-hand side. Yes, as you see it go around the corner, it continues on to some windows and doorways on that north-built side of the building face as well.
Okay, and last, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
of course.
The side yard, you're actually looking to increase those. Did I read that and hear that correctly?
Yes.
So that's why Mr.
need-
Kaiser is so thankful about that, because it's going to increase the distance between your building and anything that he may do on the north side at least.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And the way that wall has been positioned is based on the outside of the at-grade parking area. But it's also done far enough away to accommodate side yard swales, and that we don't have to do increased building systems along for fire ratings and those kind of things along the sidewalls there.
Thank you. That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other, go to Councillor Wink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the consultants. 28 parking spaces, are they all allocated to the condo owners, or is there visitor parking?
There is visitor parking, so there would be one space allocated per unit, so that would allow for 6 visitor parking spaces. So that's why one of the provisions that we're asking for is to allow that little parking slip in the front area there. So if a visitor comes in, they can pull into that space, get let into the main garage, and go to that visitor parking stall.
Okay, so thank you for that. Still on parking then, if you say that there's 6 visitor parking spaces, but 2 are designated as accessible parking spaces, will they always remain, if there's no accessible residents in the building, will they always remain as accessible parking, visitor parking spots?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, under the zoning, we're required to provide those accessible parking spaces, yeah.
Okay, great. The Harrington Group posed a number of questions with respect to accessibility. Can you make some comments with respect to that, please?
Yeah, certainly. I think some of their concerns were that the two emergency stairways were not connected to the main elevator in the lobby. They're actually accessed by man doors on the south side of the building. So those would have independent key fob entries. You got your little chip and it'll let you into the door, those kind of things. So at this point, we're at the official plan and zoning stage. We certainly have a site plan application process to go through where we refine all those comments, including grading design, and make sure that any accessible issues are addressed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I go to Councillor Nesnick. Did I see your hand up? Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you. I'll just lower my hand here. Oh, somebody did for me, thank you. So just, I guess I don't need that. A few comments. I think as Mr. Kaiser mentioned, that Station Street has been along and one of our first roads in Pelham. However, there doesn't seem to be a lot of historical buildings that remain on that section of road. I think being the first kind of, although there are apartments further down on Station Street, but being kind of in that section, the first building to go away from individual residential homes is always tough for the neighbors. So was sort of happy to hear that the north property is actually probably going to be redeveloped in the near future as well. So I have just a few questions. So through you, Mr. Mayor, just the garbage, I guess, is going to be inside the garage area. And how will that be delivered out to the street? Like, will a superintendent do that, or are they doing the other kind of garbage thing that they usually do?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yeah, so we have a garbage room in the building. That would be picked up through private waste collection. So on garbage day, exactly as you say, the superintendent would wheel the waste containers out. The garbage truck would empty them, and then they'd be wheeled back into the garbage room. So we'll be working through the site plan process to ensure that our private waste collector knows the dimensions of the garage space and is able to access and maneuver that. There'll likely be, a small couple-minute window where the front main drive aisle inside the building is temporarily blocked, but that's very common in all type of instances with these type of apartments. So yes, that's what we're proposing to do here.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to see the setback from both Station Street as well as the side yards. So thank you for maintaining some good space there. I do have a huge concern though with regards to the rear being only 1.4 meter requested. Those are going to be individual residential homes behind that property. So just wondering if maybe a consideration of shortening the building to increase that backyard, because currently there would be no outdoor amenity space for any of the residents in this area or in this facility. So that should be considered some outdoor amenity spaces for them. I know they've got the balcony, but they should also be able to put their feet on a little patch of grass, in my opinion. So just consider maybe shortening the building and reducing, I guess you'd have to reduce the number of units. But overall, I do like the design of the building. You've done a great job on that. I'm not overly concerned about the height. One way, if you wanted to consider to reduce the height a little bit, would be if instead of doing just on-grade parking, if you recess the parking into the ground a little bit, 3 or 4 feet. I don't know if that's doable or possible, but that's another consideration. And then that would bring down the overall height of the building. Also, I just was wondering, so in the original reading, I read that they were scheduled to be apartments, and now you're mentioning that they're condos. So can you just clarify which you're anticipating them to be, condos or apartments?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, they will be condo apartments.
Okay, good. I was pleased to see the size of them. They're not overly big, and I think our town does need units of that size and structure and design. So going forward, that's terrific. So also then hoping that if this is approved during your site plan agreement, if that rear yard can have some fencing to ensure privacy for the neighbors that will be there in the future. And I guess my last question was, where was it? Oh, the first floor. So some of your pictures show the side building on the first floor as all brick, and then some of them show renderings with window spaces in there. So just can you clarify through the mayor, what the intent is of the design of that building on the first floor?
Yes, so we will be proposing windows along that side brick wall. That is correct. So it does break up the building massing, and just instead of having one big long brick wall, you would see some windows and some indentation that provide some articulation of that wall. So it's not as glaringly just blank. But the intention is to have additional landscaping on either side of the building. So where there's gaps, there'll be windows, and then that would be staggered with landscaping in between the windows as well. And we feel the windows are important for that parking garage. It just adds that element of safety that so many people have concerns with in the parking garage. So we felt it was important to include those.
Great, thank you. That's all of my questions for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Now turn to Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess sort of following up on Councillor Niznik's and knowing that we've been in other situations where there's been concerns of residences behind a building where parking is and the shining of headlights and everything else. So potentially you may want to think along the east wall of not having windows in the first floor, so that when vehicles are entering and exiting, they're not going to characteristically blow right into the backyards of everyone else, because that's a big concern. I think that's a positive thing. You had mentioned the two parking spaces with respect for AODA spaces for that. How will it be adapted if a person that purchases in there requires an AODA space within your existing design of the parking that's in the building? Because generally they're bigger. So that, I can see that creating a potential issue of how will it fit. Has that been thought about in terms of the design? The follow-up to that is, I'm assuming that there's internal access from the parking into the lobby area for a person, so it's secure, so they don't physically have to leave the parking garage, go outside to enter the building. I would think that would be a standardized design as well. But have you thought about that, of suddenly you've got 2 or 3 residents that I need an AODA parking space, how you're gonna handle it?
Yeah, through you, Mr. May. So typically in these situations, so we're required to provide a certain number under zoning, but how we assign the use of those spaces within the condominium, we have the freedom to do that. So often if someone who has accessible needs comes in, we'll actually assign at least one, we'll maintain one visitor accessible parking stall, but then the other one that we can then provide to someone who needs that stall.
And I assume that then whatever space they weren't using would be considered a visitor parking spot?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around when you're in a confined space. I somewhat differ from Councillor Niznik. Digging into the ground 4 feet is just going to create water issues beyond anything if you've been anywhere where surface, especially when the road is higher than the base. There's an awful lot of houses that have plugged up their, what I call subterranean parking, where it's not completely below, but it creates a great challenge. You really have to think about that. So I don't have an issue with 12.5 meters. I think in design and visibility and likely what's to occur in the future at 3 stories coming, I expect that that's, the 12.5 meters wouldn't be an issue. I don't have an issue with it, but that's kind of where things go. But I think otherwise, everything I've seen is useful. The size of the units appears to be smart in that I would almost say this is a stepwise move for the town of Pelham, for residents that want to stay in the town, to downsize into a smaller unit, but still be within access to all of the town amenities, especially when you look at its location. That's kind of a prime piece of real estate for someone to be able to get to Peace Park, to get to shopping, to get to everything, easily within walking distance as well. So I'm fine from that end. So thank you for answering the questions about the parking. That was accessibility was my question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Olson, I don't know if you had your hand up. Don't mean to prompt you. Any comments or not? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just couldn't find the button here to turn it on, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Everyone's commented then. I guess my only comments would be from the mayor and from the regional standpoint. I think this is, as Councillor Kerr has pointed out, this is a great situation for exactly this type of development. It gives us more spaces in the town that, and the size is excellent. Outside of the building looks super. I think it's a great addition to the town, and I trust our planning department will keep everything in conforming to the town as you go ahead, whether it be the parking spaces, whatever. Like I said, it's come along very good. If I may, and I realize this isn't a question that you have to answer, any timelines on this?
Yeah, that's always a tough question.
Yes.
Dependent on the market. So we've got the site plan process to go through, which will be undertaken through a good chunk of this year. So depending on when that process concludes, with the market shifting the way it has been, it's really hard to say with the politics. I'm sure everyone is aware of the threat of tariffs and whatnot, and the price of steel and all that kind of stuff getting all balled in. But yeah, if everything goes smoothly, the idea would be to have something started next year here.
Excellent. Well, I think this council and the residents are looking forward to this development proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you.
I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there are no further committee comments, we can move to the presentation of resolutions. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink that committee receive report 2025-0030, information report, applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, 1415 Station Street, as it pertains to files number OP-AM-01-2024 and AM-09-2024, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on this topic for council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just one last time, any further comments from committee members? I see none. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert that committee receive the applicant's presentation for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson that committee receive the verbal presentations made by the public. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that brings us to adjournment. I have a motion brought forth by Councillor Kerr that this special committee of the whole public meeting under the Planning Act be adjourned.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? See none opposed. This meeting is adjourned.